Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. Hope you're having a great day today. The weather looking wonderful out there. It is blustery, though, my goodness. I was up early this morning and doing some errands and just about had the vehicle door ripped right out of my hand. It was blowing pretty hard, but the sky is clear and it's a sunny day. It's not that bad at all. I know that we're fairly lucky here in HRM and in Nova Scotia. I was looking at some video and some social media posts from Newfoundland and Labrador, and they are getting the brunt of this storm, and they are certainly some snow flying there, and there's some strong winds and power outages. I know it's blowing up in Cape Breton this morning, so if you have friends or family up there, of course, we're keeping our thoughts with them as well as we deal with yet another fall storm here in our part of the world. It looks like there might be some more rain in the forecast, maybe through the end of this week for sure into Saturday, the last I saw anyways. So we might have another wet weekend. If you're planning to get out, you may have to make plans accordingly. We'll get, of course, an update on the weather on Friday from our weather specialist, and that being Alistair Alders. Well, normally on a day after the federal budget drops, it's difficult to try and dig into this document. It's 409 pages, and come together with the story that's coming out of the budget, right? Different people will latch on to different areas of the budget, the deficit, the spending on the military, the spending on infrastructure. But the story yesterday happened on the in the House of Commons and had a very strong Nova Scotia connection to it. If you haven't heard the news yet, Nova Scotia MP Chris D'Entremont, who has been in politics in this province for a very long time. I go back to the early 2000s when he was an MLA and in various forms of government, but has been an MP down on the southern ends of the province for some time, now representing the riding of Acadie-Annapolis. And I'll read his statement to you. He reads as follows. It says, earlier this afternoon, upon the presentation of the 2025 budget, I informed the Leader of the Opposition House Leader, and the Speaker of the House of Commons that I had resigned from the Conservative caucus. After serious consideration and thoughtful conversations with constituents and my family, I came to a clear conclusion. There's a better path forward for our country and a better path forward for Acadie-Annapolis. Prime Minister Mark Carney is offering a path with a new budget that hits the priorities I have heard most in my riding, to build strong community infrastructure and grow a stronger economy. That is why I am joining the government caucus. After 5 years of serving in opposition, the people of Acadie-Annapolis and all Canadians know that the moment we face today needs all of us to lead, not with complaint, but with confidence in a strong future. This is an important moment for the country to come together, and I'm looking forward to working with the Prime Minister to build a strong economic future that all of our communities deserve. That, the statement yesterday afternoon after the budget dropped from the MP for Acadie-Annapolis, and that being Chris D'Entremont. It comes by various terms, but the term that is most appropriate to this is crossing the floor. It's not unique. It's not something that we haven't seen before. It's not that it hasn't happened without precedent. But it happened yesterday. In response, as you can imagine, the Conservative Party not very happy with that decision from Mr. D'Entremont. This statement from the Chief Opposition Whip, Chris Warkington, and it reads as follows. Conservatives don't see how Chris D'Entremont can possibly vote for the Liberal budget after running to make life more affordable for Canadians with smaller deficits and a resilient economy. In April, he supported our Conservative platform to help young Canadians who couldn't find jobs and had to move back to their parents' basements. Today, he decided he apparently wants to break with those promises so he can vote in favor of the industrial carbon tax, driving up food costs, and the fuel standards the Liberals are imposing. Conservatives are disappointed that he let his own personal grievances of not getting elected deputy speaker get in the way of his promises, and that he agrees with the Liberals and that Canadians have to sacrifice more of their failures. Mr. d'Entremont must explain to his constituents why he broke his promises to them. That is the statement from the Conservative Party whip, Chris Warkington. Crossing the floor. Now, regardless of the reasons behind it, I think it's wrong. It doesn't represent the wishes of the electorate at all. Now, Chris d'Entremont says that this is the best path forward for his constituents. And even if that's the case, the voters in Acadie, Annapolis, who voted for Chris d'Entremont, voted for him as a conservative, not as a liberal. Now, I know that in smaller ridings and in rural ridings, politicians that elected can be popular. And Chris has a long history of public service. I'm not calling that into dispute at all. And some people in that riding may have voted for Chris d'Entremont, the person. But as you know, many of us, when it comes to a federal election, take into consideration who the candidate is in our riding. But many of us vote for the leader of the party that person's representing. It's the way that our system works. Is it right? Is it flawed? Sure. But it's how it works. I think it's safe to say that some of the votes that Mr. d'Entremont got in the last election, and he only won by like 2,000 votes, were people that were voting for the Conservatives and, by extension, the leader of the Conservative Party, and that being Pierre Poilievre. Now, we've seen, as I said earlier, floor crossings happen at all levels of government where it can happen, right? It's happened at the provincial level. We saw it with Brendan McGuire. We've seen it on many different occasions at the provincial level. We've seen it on a number of different occasions at the federal level. But here's the rub. I think that if you are soul-searching as a politician, if you are questioning the direction that your party is going, maybe the leadership, if you want to change teams, then I think the appropriate thing to do is to resign your seat, go through the process, offer up as the Liberal Party candidate in that riding, and let the electorate decide. I think that that's the appropriate way to change tact when it comes to political beliefs. Might be something that you want to talk about when we open up the phone lines. Don't forget it's Wednesday today, so we're going to do that after 12 o'clock today when we have our regular visit with the doctor. Dr. John Gillis will be here after 11 o'clock today. Obviously, that and there's a lot of things in the federal budget that we can address. Some of the things that kind of jumped off the page for me was a $78 billion deficit. That's what the deficit's going to be this year round. It's projected, and projections, right? But it's projected to lessen as we move forward. But this year, $78 billion. Do you know that when that gets tacked on to the debt that the country has as a whole, that we spend, you and I and Vanessa and everybody else spends $55.6 billion a year servicing that debt? I don't even know how much that is. It's just such a huge number that people's eyes just glaze over. But that's a significant amount of money. And that just goes to pay interest on the debt that we accumulate. Military getting a big shot in the arm. The military is going to see like an $80 million or $1 billion increase in their budget for the year. I know that that's going to play well here. I think the devil's in the details when it comes to where that money's going to go and what it's going to see. Are we going to see new gear? Likely. Are we going to see an increase in a recruitment effort? Likely. Are we going to see the procurement process at work? Maybe. But that one was one of the big ones that jumped off the page for me. Also, immigration is being cut by the government. Student and foreign workers being slashed by half. Foreign aid to be cut to pre-pandemic levels. I know that's been something that many of you have joined this show to talk about. And the other big portion of the budget yesterday that I think will have long-reaching impacts, not only on the actual dollar figures it's going to, and I'm putting quotes around this, save, but the federal government has said that they're going to slash the civil service by 38,000 jobs, or about 10%, by 2028, 2029. So if those numbers hold true, 1 out of every 10 civil servants that are currently working today will no longer work for the federal government. They say they're going to be able to accomplish this through different programs and attrition and that kind of thing, but that's a significant cut. And I know it's easy, and I know it happens a lot here on this program that we kind of pick on the civil servants and bureaucrats. But there's going to be a lot of people that are losing their jobs. And we're still at a $78 billion deficit. We're going to spend the first hour of the program today focusing on the budget. We're going to dig into the numbers on a broader scale when we hook up with our next guest. Of course, that is our friend and political scientist, and that is Laurie Turnbull. And the special guest that I've been teasing for a couple days will be here after 10:30. We're going to dig into the budget and this business with Chris D'Entremont crossing the floor with our good friend and, well, I don't even know how to describe him anymore. We just call him Steve Murphy around here. He'll be here after 10:30 to give us his thoughts on the budget and politics moving forward. I hope that you can stick around for that. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Oldstrand. We're back in minutes. Well, hello, welcome back. It's the day after, as we like to call it around here, and as I said in the opening of the show today, that when a federal budget drops, the document, I think this one was like 409 pages long. There are all kinds of little nuggets and little pieces in there that, we look at the broad picture and we look at the big numbers. And, we hear these billions of dollars, which I really can't even get my head wrapped around, and military spending and housing and a lack of talk about grocery store prices and then, little nuggets in there like Canada Post is going to get the ability to set its own rates for postage stamps moving forward. I wonder how that works out with the strike that's going on. But it's not often that a federal budget gets kind of overshadowed, I will say, by a move by an individual member of Parliament, and particularly one from Nova Scotia. We're unfortunately unable to connect up with Laurie Turnbull, but as I mentioned earlier, we have a special guest here, and I'm going to push him into service earlier than he anticipated. It's live. Remember, Steve?
That's
live
just
stuff,
because
right?
I brought you coffee.
Well, he did. Normally
it's the Veinotte rule, though. You can't come in the studio unless you bring gifts.
Right?
Yeah.
Coffee's good.
Yeah.
Especially after going through that 409-page document yesterday.
It wasn't as tough as the Game 7 of the World Series.
No, that was tough. That one was tough to watch, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Mr. Murphy, you've known Chris probably longer than I have.
Yes, sir.
And he's spent a lot of time in provincial politics, and he was a broadcaster before that.
Sure was, CJLS.
And now is an MP and, former deputy speaker of the House of Commons. And I got to tell you, when I saw the news broke yesterday, I was kind of shocked to see it.
Timing is everything, and if you were going to play this for maximum effect, you would play it exactly the way that Mr. d'Entremont played it. He did manage to preempt the news cycle. I was watching all of the national coverage, listening to some of the coverage on the radio, and certainly the attention shifted, not permanently, but it did shift, as it did on your opening here this morning,
right,
from the content of the budget to his decision to very publicly not support it. Now, we could get into the nuts and bolts of crossing the floor. A lot of people don't like it. It's entirely permissible in our system, and in fact, perhaps the greatest practitioner of Westminster politics, the Right Honourable Sir Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill, not only did it once, he did it twice. So crossing the floor is ancient. It's more common in Newfoundland and Labrador than probably anywhere in Canada. It doesn't happen very often here, although Brendan Maguire did it, famously joining the Tim Houston government. So the question is this a one-off, or is this the beginning of a small parade across the floor? I am hearing, and I'll tell you exactly what I've heard from sources on the Hill and elsewhere, is that Mr. d'Entremont has been unhappy for quite some time, and that he may not be the only disaffected Conservative who will opt to not support the budget. And I think, given Mr. Poilievre and his position, if you're not going to support the Conservative Party, and you are going to support the budget, I should say, then you're likely going to have to leave. And that's what's happened with d'Entremont.
The whip put out the Conservative Party whip. I read it off the top of the show today. Put out a statement and said that Mr. d'Entremont's decision was based over sour grapes of not being elected deputy speaker.
I've heard that. I've heard that. There may be some truth in that. I don't know. We'd have to ask Mr. d'Entremont. I don't know if he's done an interview. He's probably more likely to do one with you than anybody else.
I'm looking at him right now. He's on TV.
Okay.
But Vanessa, I will say that Vanessa, we had him booked for tomorrow.
Yeah.
To do a budget reaction piece.
Yeah.
And then all of this happened.
Well, we have his budget reaction.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty clearly. But here's the interesting thing, and I'm not trying to make more of this than it is, but I don't want to undersell it either. As you well know, Dan, in this part of the country, progressive Conservatives are not the same as Conservatives. We've seen this with Mr. Houston and Mr. Poilievre. Tim Houston is an old-style progressive Conservative brand politician in the tradition of Robert Stanfield, John Hamm, of course, famously John Buchanan.
Right.
I would say that Chris d'Entremont is a progressive Conservative. He is more progressive than Conservative, and I don't know how comfortable he and the other traditional progressive Conservatives have been in the Conservative Party, and I don't know how comfortable they are with the kind of leadership and tone they're getting from their leader.
Crossing the floor. I'm not a fan. I don't think it's the democratic way to do things. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I could argue it from both sides of the coin. Let me say this. First of all, if it's a matter of principle, then I think a person cannot be faulted for doing what their conscience instructs them to do. I have not heard what Mr. d'Entremont's specific principles are when it comes to joining a party that he opposed only a few months ago. On the other side of the coin, there have been attempts in some jurisdictions, including in this country, famously Manitoba, to ban it. And in fact, I believe it was an NDP premier of Manitoba who did ban it. And then the floor crossing ban was overturned by a successive government because, of course, it is seen by some as being extremely anti-democratic to say that someone is, forced to sacrifice their conscience to politics. So I think it depends whether you're buying or selling. Personally, I would prefer that we have some mechanism whereby a person has to subject their decision to the wishes of their voters.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. And with the current system that we have, I think that the only way that we can do it is to resign your seat and then run in a by-election.
Yeah, although I can hear callers to this program complaining about the cost of doing that.
Right.
Because there would be costs, tremendous costs in doing it. So, yeah, again, I think you can argue it from both sides of the coin. I will say if Chris d'Entremont runs again, then the voters in, well, I guess it's Annapolis, Acadie, Annapolis, now used to be West Nova,
right.
They will have the final say.
Absolutely. And voters always have the final say.
Voters always have the final say. Yeah.
Well, the federal budget has come and gone, Steve. I know it's we're still digging into it and still finding bits and pieces and little nuggets like that Canada Post one I found this morning to be rather interesting, and the timing of that I don't think is any mistake that they will now have the ability to set their own stamp prices.
Well, I think that's part of the strategy all along. It now seems pretty apparent to me that given what Mr. Carney proposes to do with the Federal Civil Service, which is about a 10% reduction over 4 years, that floating the changes at Canada Post was all part of that strategy, and clearly they're going to cut Canada Post somewhat loose.
That's going to hurt Atlantic Canada because there's a big proportion of civil servants, federal civil servants, that work in our part of the world.
Well, if you want to look at it, the two things of greatest impact to the people who are within the sound of our voices here this morning, we have a huge federal public service in the Halifax area. You know, the Canadian Forces payroll in Halifax is probably the largest in the city. It's in excess of 10,000 people in uniform and not in uniform. So any cuts to the public service will obviously be felt there and in other offices across the province. The spending on defense, this is $82 billion over 5 years.
Right.
A lot of it is on capital, but a lot of it will be putting people in boots. So there will be some job creation likely for the Halifax-Dartmouth area as a consequence of that. And, of course, it's good news for Halifax in that if we're going to be recommitting to defense spending, that means any question about the future of the River-class frigates, the warships, surely that discussion's over. Those boats are going to be built. We hope they'll all be built, maybe
all
even
14
more.
or whatever the number is now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I had a conversation with Scott Taylor yesterday from Esprit de Corps magazine, and he and I are of the same vintage with our military service, and we come from a place where they were actually paying soldiers to leave the forces. Now they can't get enough soldiers to come into the military. It'll be a interesting look to see how that recruitment effort works.
Yeah, it sure will. And again, I think if you want to look at it strictly from the Halifax point of view, another budget item that will have some effect on us is the reduction in permanent and temporary residents, because we have certainly been overperforming in the Halifax area in terms of bringing in new Canadians. Now, there will be those, and I hear them on this radio station, there will be those who will be applauding the reduction. And I, for one, have said that we do need to curtail the growth of the population, not because it's an immigration problem so much as it's a population problem, and it was a housing problem. Something else in the budget that is being delivered is infrastructure for housing. So, when I looked at this yesterday, I was not surprised by what's in it, because Carney promised big deficits and he delivered. He promised big defense spending, he delivered. He promised big money for infrastructure, and he delivered. But what's not in there? And I think this is a glaring hole in the budget. There is nothing in there that has immediate impact for people who are hurting right now.
Absolutely.
I think we all agree philosophically that the country needs to reposition economically. We need to concentrate on productivity. We need to concentrate on competitiveness. And I think that the budget maybe is a blueprint for that. Will it work? Ask us in 4 or 5 years.
Right.
But what is in there right now for people who are on their way to Sobeys or the Superstore or Giant Tiger, wherever they're going, to try to buy the groceries? I don't see anything in there that answers the immediate now. And I find that surprising because budgets are as much politics as they are policy. And I think that there were a great many people who expected some kind of relief. And there's no immediate relief. And I find that surprising politically.
That, of course, is Steve Murphy, and he's going to graciously join us here for the next 30 minutes. We put him into overtime already.
Well, if Lori calls, put her on. I love talking to Lori.
Absolutely, we'll do that. But Steve will be here for the next 30 minutes. We're going to dig into the federal budget and what it means to you and what it means to the region. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. He's Steve Murphy. I'm Dan Ulster, and we're back in minutes. All right. Always a pleasure to welcome our guest into the studio today. You've known him. He sat in a chair across the street there at CTV for a lot of years and filled us in on our nightly news. And now I understand that Mr. Steve Murphy is busier now than he was when he was working across the street.
Well, it's in some respects pretty busy, yeah. Pretty busy, but enjoying it. Can I just, and we didn't talk about this, I'd like to join all of those who are offering condolences.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
To the Monts. And I didn't know Michael and I didn't know Tony except on the radio. But condolences to all of their families, but particularly to Bill's family. Bill Mont was calling talk radio when I was doing talk radio,
right,
which is 40 years ago. Yeah. And he was calling before that.
Right.
And I think that when it comes time to name the character, you remember the Reader's Digest feature, My Most Unforgettable Character?
Yes.
Well, Bill Mont is that. And we've been so lucky in this town to have a man who had the adventurous, entrepreneurial spirit that Bill had. He invented the flea market in this town.
For sure.
He was the flea market
He brought
king.
it from California.
Yeah, he did. And he owned Devil's Island.
Right.
And he's owned all kinds of things. But the great
cemetery.
thing,
Did you read his obit about
I
bringing
did.
his stuff with him?
I did.
That is classic Belmont.
And the other thing I have to say about Bill is who loves Halifax more than Bill?
Oh, my goodness. Yes.
His love for the public gardens and Point Pleasant
Park. Yep.
And just a font of original ideas. Now, look, some of the ideas were off the wall. We know that. I think he knew that.
Yeah.
But I will say the town won't be the same. This program won't be the same without those voices.
Well, when you lose three, and I think I said it on Wednesday or Tuesday's show. I mean, when you have regular callers like Bill and like Tony and like Michael, and some of the ones that we have on a daily basis, they become part of the program.
Oh, sure they are.
Right?
Sure they are.
And when you lose three of them in a rather short period of time, it's a significant loss.
Oh, sure it is. And, each of them had a fascinating perspective. I mean, Bill was the hometown guy, a lifelong Halifax resident. Michael, the Cape Bretoner, that fiery Cape Breton spirit, the sort of spirit of the miners, the NDP and the CCF. And then there was Tony, who chose Canada.
Right.
I thought a lot of his perspectives on what was going on back in the United States were extremely interesting. But he had great affection for the country.
He did.
It's a big hole. So condolences to all three families.
Absolutely.
Of those guys.
We'll miss them for some time. If you haven't checked out Bill's obit in the paper, it's a movie of a week. There's no doubt there. Read it because there's things in there I didn't know.
Well, one of the greatest discoveries of his life was his Lebanese heritage.
And he found that very late in his life.
He did, and he was honored by the Lebanese community, by the Lebanese Chamber of Commerce. Norm Nahas and his group honored Bill, and Bill told me that was the greatest honor of his life.
Right.
And Bill had a long life.
He did.
He did, and a lot of accomplishments.
And he lived it. Like he lived 3 or 4 lifetimes.
Oh, he did.
Yeah,
and he danced his life away.
He certainly did.
What a guy!
He was again. If you haven't read it and you haven't seen there's a documentary. It's on YouTube. Just have to search it out. Somebody did a movie or a documentary about Bill. Watch it because somebody needs to pick that story up because it really can be a movie of the week. Moving on to back to the federal budget, Steve. Obviously, the military frontline item will have an impact here in Nova Scotia, and hopefully it'll be spent properly as opposed to what we've seen with procurement things in the past. All that being said, what else did you pick out of there that will have a benefit to Atlantic Canada?
Well, I mean, I think the devil is in the details, as you've said. This, to me, is a long-term document. I really don't think that we can say very much with certainty about what is going to happen. It's pretty clear what the government hopes is going to happen. The government is hoping that by spending, particularly on infrastructure, over the next 5 years, that will trigger tremendous amounts of spending in the private sector. All of this, of course, is part and parcel of, I think, what the Prime Minister hopes will be our bid to become autonomous from the United States, at least less dependent on the United States. But the problem with this budget, frankly, the problem with all budgets and all governments, is that they want to make us think long-term, but they are themselves short-term instruments. This government, if it survives the budget, parenthetically, I think this budget will pass. I'm not so sure about how long the government has, though.
Right.
And when we're dealing with a minority government, which, by the way, this could become a majority with 3 floor crossings and you've got a majority. But governments only get 4 years. Some of the consequences of this budget and all budgets are literally years in the making. Look how long ago it was that the federal government announced the ships that are now being built literally within eyesight of this 9th floor studio on Yonge Street. It's taken years to build those ships. We haven't cut, I think maybe we're cutting some steel for the River-class warships now, but it's taken all these years to get to the stage where we're going to start to build those ships. This stuff takes a long time.
First year I came to Halifax from Moncton, that was when the ship start here happened, and that was 14 years ago.
Yeah. The other thing is, and I don't like to be too critical of governments because, we ask governments to do a lot. But it's one thing to say you're going to spend money. It's another thing entirely to get the money out the door. The previous government, the Trudeau government, made lots of pronouncements. But some of the things never, ever happened because they couldn't get the money out the door. How fast can you get this money? How fast can you get these programs actually underway? And this is the commentary I heard from many in the business community that really resonates with me. And that is, it's one thing to say you're going to do it, but how quickly can you actually get it done?
We talked about the civil service and its impact here. Immigration was also front and center in the budget, and as you well know, Steve, listening to the show, that it has been a topic of discussion here for a long time. I think that it's going to have a significant impact on Halifax itself, not necessarily in the areas that we think, but they're going to, again, reduce the number of student visas that are available for international students. And we've spoken to Dalhousie, we've spoken to St. Mary's, we've spoken to a number of universities here who are already hurting because of a loss of international students.
Well, we've been very successful in Nova Scotia, not just here in Halifax, by the way. Cape Breton, under Dave Dingwall, Cape Breton University, has done a tremendous job bringing in foreign students, so much so that the university has been unable to accommodate them physically. We've had students commuting from the metro area up to Cape Breton. But if you're going to curtail those students, yes, there's going to be an impact on our universities. And I think we sometimes forget, Dan, that although universities do cost us money, we do invest a tremendous amount of money in them. They're tremendous generators of wealth in the economy as well. Huge payrolls, and of course the consequences of all of the spending that the students do, pretty tough to calculate. But talk to Halifax businesses, particularly in the entertainment sector. I'm talking about bars, restaurants, Ubers, taxis. Students
pizza joints.
Pizza joints, yeah. Donair joints. No, and joints. No, but students spend a lot of money, and the universities are important economic engines. So anything that harms the universities has a larger impact across the economy. That said, I think we've agreed quite some while ago that we fell badly out of balance in Canada with our growing population and our inability to keep up with housing and medical doctors, among other social infrastructure. So something had to be done, and this is probably, and I say this reluctantly, this is probably the right thing to do. By the way, in 1977, I think it was 1977, I was part of the Canadian Student Debating Federation National Debating Championships in St. Catharines, Ontario, and the resolution was, be it resolved that immigration be curtailed. So we in this country have been having this discussion, well, since I was 17 years old,
right,
and for a long time before that.
I mentioned it on the show, I think it was on Monday, that I've been watching on, I think it's the CBC Gem app. They have a whole bunch of old television shows, and I watched the premiere episode of King of Kensington.
Oh, what a great show.
From 1975.
Yeah.
And I was born, but not much. And they were sitting around.
I was born, but not much.
They were sitting around a table in a social club that the king had with his friends and anyway. And they were talking about immigration and immigrants coming to the country to steal jobs.
Well, it was in Kensington Market, right, in Toronto. I was well born by then, by the way. That was just, the King of Kensington came on just before I got into radio, actually.
Oh my goodness.
No, I mean, the issue's been around for a long time. And this, I dare say, if you could roll the hands of time back, to the turn of the 19th century into the 20th century, we were probably having an immigration debate in Halifax because there was a tremendous wave of immigration at the end of the 19th century. We had a tremendous wave of immigration at mid-century in the 20th century.
My family came here.
Absolutely. Well, and many of my family came here in the mid-19th century, part of the Irish. I guess it wasn't really just an emigration. It was more than that. It was socially engineering the Irish out of the country. But the whole point is this has been an issue here for a long time.
Right. And I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon, but it is something that I think the federal government, under the previous administration, under the Trudeau government, got the numbering wrong. Got we had a system that worked, and they messed up the system, and now they're trying to fix it. I think it's the best way to look at it.
Well, I think there's some evidence to support that. We took what might have been the best immigration system in the world and really made it into a big problem. Yep.
We're going to stop and take another break. When we come back, Wind West gets a mention in the budgets. I'm going to pick Mr. Murphy's brain on what he thinks about Tim Houston's plan for the future. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. Back in a minute. Welcome back. This is the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. He is Steve Murphy, and we're going over the budget. And this wasn't included in the budget per se, but it got a mention, and that was as Premier Houston's plan for offshore wind generation. That's going to be a generational change for our economy, as he says, and that's Wind West. Your thoughts on A, hearing it yesterday, and B, where we're going with this?
Well, let me begin by saying I think the wind is a tremendous resource, and we should do whatever we can to find out how we can tap into it and use it, because we've got lots of it. I would
most
not,
of that comes
however.
right out of this studio. But
You beat me to that one. But I wouldn't spend 5 cents today based on the money we might make from Wind West. And I'll tell you why. I remember very well back in the 70s and 80s when we discovered petroleum off the Nova Scotia coast. Jerry Regan famously held up a vial on the front page of the Herald. Remember the Herald? Jerry Regan held up a vial and he said, it's oil. And that was all the oil we saw for a very long time.
Right.
Was in the vial. Later on, of course, we did get very significant quantities of natural gas from the Nova Scotia offshore. John Buchanan got reelected in 1980. Which election was it? 84, by promising basically that the offshore would pay off all of our debt. Well, we got a lot of gas, and we got a lot of natural gas, but we didn't pay off any of our indebtedness,
Right.
Because of course it was never as lucrative as it might have been. Although we did make a lot of money on it. So my point is, I certainly think that there's something to be looked at there, and I'm glad to see that the government is out shopping the idea. Mr. Houston taking on the energy portfolio gives you some idea that he thinks it's important. He will get a lot of attention when he goes to Houston or Calgary because he's the premier of Nova Scotia. He's not a minister. He is the prime minister. So he'll get a lot of attention. But will he drum up all of the capital investment needed to make it happen? I don't know. But I'll say this. I hope so. I would love to see it happen.
Well, as we heard here on the program when we had our conversation with Larry Hughes from Dalhousie, he said, there's very little data out there about how this is going to work on the Scotian Shelf,
right,
in shallow water with the North Atlantic, with the storms. Look at the storm that's hitting Newfoundland right now, right?
Absolutely.
And it's going to take 2 decades before we see any kind of return on this.
And that's the thing about big ideas. And I have great respect for the dreamers of big dreams. We need more of them. And some of what's in this budget, by the way, is big dreaming. And I hear Doug Ford talking about the Ring of Fire. That's your stomping grounds up in Northern Ontario. I hope it all happens. But I wouldn't spend, a nickel today based on what happened tomorrow. It's like Wimpy used to say, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. Well,
right.
Okay. I wouldn't have that hamburger.
You mentioned the Toronto Blue Jays, Steve. I know you're a fan as I. Your thoughts on the World Series and how that team united a country?
Well, let me say, first of all, I'm not a Blue Jays fan. I'm an Atlanta Braves fan, and I don't want to talk about that.
Okay.
At any rate, no. Look, the Blue Jays, in some senses, were a bit like the Atlanta Braves when they went from worst to first. Not that the Jays were absolutely the worst. I think last year, didn't they? They finished last in the division.
In the division.
So, no, the Blue Jays were a team of destiny. But they are not, I don't think, a team of dynasty. I think the Dodgers are a team of dynasty. I think the Blue Jays will be hard-pressed to repeat this because there was so much lightning in so many bottles for the Blue Jays. But my gosh, it was great to have the country gathered around television sets for an event, and we were all pulling in the same direction. It wasn't partisan.
It doesn't happen a lot.
It doesn't.
I can think of 92 and 93 when the Jays won the World Series.
Yes.
I can think of
beat the Braves.
I can think of I can't think of it. I was literally hours old when the 72 Summit Series happened.
Remember that?
The golden goal of Vancouver Olympics, right?
76 Olympics united the country in a way.
Right. Montreal.
But the thing about this is that it's no secret that in this country, the late Andrew Crystal used to describe Toronto as the great Satan. It was a bit of hyperbole, not that Crystal was prone to that. God rest his soul. Tremendous brain. But there is a lot of resentment of Toronto in many parts of the country because Toronto likes to behave like the navel of the nation. And, it isn't the center of the universe. But for the last 2 weeks, last month, we were all rallied. We were all in orbit around the navel of the nation, all rooting for the same thing. And there was something sweet about that. By the way, I wonder if the Americans got the politics in the way that we did. I sense they didn't. But I wonder if people in the United States realized the extent to which sovereignty was on the line.
Right. And the questions if they make that 90 feet that they didn't in the bottom of the ninth, or that the bat doesn't break, or the ball doesn't get stuck underneath the padding in the outfield.
It's kind of like saying if I'd bought the right numbers, I would have won the lotto.
That's just it. If I'd have picked those right numbers on. But that being said, there was some discussion about would the Jays go to the White House to as all championship teams do? Would have been an interesting discussion.
I heard the president of the United States say that he wasn't going to invite either team to the White House because, of course, he doesn't like Canada and he doesn't really like California, particularly after what happened out there yesterday.
Right.
But I don't know. Will President Trump really not have the World Series champions
America's pastime?
In the White House? I don't know. Maybe in the new ballroom. Big enough to play ball in it.
Yeah, you probably could. You probably could. What are you up to these days, Steve? You were busy man.
Yeah, well, I'm still busy with Murphy's Logic on CTV, and tomorrow, actually, I'm going to be talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart around this time of year, and that is the importance of remembering.
Absolutely.
And how difficult it is to remember, because we've lost so many who not only fought and served, but so many who were alive during the Second War. So I have a few ideas what I think we need about what we need to do to make sure that those who cannot remember go out and learn. Because, and I'm not trying to be overly dramatic, but the echoes of the pre-Second World War period can be heard today, but you need to know what to listen for.
Absolutely, and we've lost the connection to that. To that war, because most of the people that were there or alive during that period have passed.
That's right.
And when we lose connection to things, in today's world where we're bombarded with things all over the place, we tend to forget, and that's something that we should and can never do.
Yep. So that's what I'm working on for tomorrow. Doing a big event for the Mental Health Foundation at the end of the month, which is their gala, which is a great seasonal event in town. And, of course, Christmas Daddies is getting fired up, which is the first Saturday in December. The 62nd Christmas Daddy show. Yeah. I was around for the first one, but I wasn't on here, obviously.
It was the second one.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
All
Thanks
right.
a lot. Well, anyway, lots to chew on here. Can hardly wait to hear what the callers have to say about
and we're going to do that, and we're going to talk about the crossing of the floor. That's going to happen at noon today because, of course, Dr. John Gillis will be here and will be answering your medical-related questions. So if you have a question for the doctor, that's going to happen here right after the top of the hour. I've got to ask you about some provincial politics quickly before we go.
Yeah, sure.
Claudia Chender has named herself as the housing minister. We saw a cabinet shuffle here. I talked to Becky Drouin, who was still very political in her answers about all of that. Your thoughts on what you think happened to force the Premier's hand on that?
Oh, boy. I don't know. I haven't spoken with either of the two. I did hear the former minister with you. She's being very, very diplomatic, although it's a little more than that, because I think she's honoring the time-tested and time-honored tradition of remaining quiet about what goes on in the cabinet room. And we could debate the merits of that, but that is part of the system. I assume on its face that there was some profound disagreement and that it became untenable for either the Premier to have her at the table or for her to be at the table, or perhaps it was mutual. I don't know. I don't know what the issue would be. There could be several. I mean, you've talked about a few of them on the air, but I don't think we will. Maybe we will never know. I don't know.
You mentioned Premier Houston. We've got about a minute left here. Naming himself as energy minister and saying that he believes it's that important. Mm-hmm. Is this him consolidating more control into the Premier's office, in your opinion, or is this something that he really wants to focus on?
Unfortunately, you're bringing this up with only a minute to go, because this is one of the things that I'm feeling very passionate about. In fact, I was down speaking to a political science class at Dal about this a couple of weeks ago. I'm very concerned about what Dr. Alex Marland at Acadia and others call executive creep, which is where the executive is taking over more and more of our government. And it's because of the integration of our executive into the legislature that it's possible. But we have a very centralized government. The office of Premier, is not defined in the Constitution. The Premier is supposed to be first among equals, but he who is first is more equal than everybody else, and we're seeing more and more of that all the time. I really don't have any problem with the politicians carving up their duties as they see fit. But when I see staff members assuming more and more power and acting in the name of and on behalf of the Premier, I do have concerns about that. Nobody elected those people. The Premier has the right to be supported by people he trusts and people he can rely on. But I do think that the voters, we need to retain some control over what goes on down there, because after all, they are controlling us, or trying to.
Is this a creature of a supermajority, do you think, because he doesn't have to really worry about the House?
The supermajority amplifies it, but it goes on in all parliamentary democracies where we have first ministers whose executive authority is not really defined or limited. But by the way, the United States, which has a constitution which defines it and limits it, it's proving to be of dubious effect.
A discussion for another day. Mr. Murphy, I appreciate your time, sir.
Appreciate it, Dan. Great to talk to you. Look forward to hearing what all the folks are saying.
That, of course, the voice of Steve Murphy, who joins us from time to time. Hopefully it won't be as long this time around, but as you heard, he's a busy, busy man these days. We're going to stop, take a break. House calls on the other side of the news. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in a minute. It's the Wednesday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show, and that means it's now time for house calls. If you have a question for our doctor, here's an opportunity to get some advice as you move through the work week. 902-405-6000 is the number, or 1-877-801-8255. Again, 1-877-801-8255 or 902-405-6000. That is the numbers. Those are the numbers to get a hold of us to get your question asked for Dr. Gillis. We're just waiting to connect up with him. Vanessa's busily working forward here. Just a quick note, as for those of you that are new to the program, we will do the open hour. I know it traditionally happens here at 11, but on Wednesdays, because of house calls, we move it to noon. So if you want to sound off on some of the things that you heard from Mr. Murphy or from or have some of your own thoughts with regards to the federal budget and Chris D'Entremont leading the Conservative caucus to cross the floor to join the Liberals, that's going to happen after 12 o'clock today. Please welcome to the show the aforementioned Dr. John Gillis. Dr. John, how are you?
Good, sir. How's it going?
Not too bad. We haven't chatted since the World Series ended. Your thoughts on that Game 7?
Oh, it's just, I think I need to stop going to sporting events. I was actually in Chicago watching a rugby game on Ireland versus New Zealand and supporting Ireland, and they lost, and then we all trundled back to the hotel to hopefully watch the Jays do it, and it was tough. They put in a great effort, and talk about a game of inches, like one play here, one play there.
Right, 90 feet or two outs, really.
Yeah, it was tough. You got to feel for them. So.
You do. But good news is we're starting to see some of the pitching staff saying that they're going to return, so maybe we'll have another run next year. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I hope so. That was just, I'm not, I'm more of a Red Sox fan, but I feel bad for the hardcore Jays fans and for the players. They really, they put in a shift. So
they certainly did. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dr. John, before we get to the first phone call today, a couple of emails from people wondering about flu shots and more particularly COVID shots, some saying that they've reached out to pharmacies and are not able to make appointments and are being told that there is no vaccine available, it's all gone. What are you hearing about it?
I've heard a little bit of that. I haven't heard a whole lot, to be honest. It's sort of the same chatter I guess probably you've heard maybe I'll see if I can find out what the deal is, if there's a shortage or what's happening.
Or there's a bigger uptake this year, maybe. Hard to say, but I've got 2 or 3 people from that have phoned different pharmacies and said they're unable to make appointments.
Yeah, it does seem a lot, especially this early in the season. So I'll see what I can find out.
Beautiful. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We'll go right to the phones and we welcome John to the show. John, how are you?
Oh, I'm actually very bloated.
Okay. I imagine that's your question for Dr. Gillis.
Yeah. So basically, I'm 6'1". I usually hover around 225, 226, a bit overweight, but nothing too crazy. But I went on vacation in the U.S. a month ago and drank like a ton of cheap beer, the cheap American beers, like the camping and all that. And when I got back, I was eating steaks and stuff, but like nothing with high gluten or anything in it. And I was like an extra 6 pounds on me. And anyway, so I out of nowhere, I haven't changed my diet. I haven't been eating at night or anything. And my weight just blew up. And anyway, so the night before last, I weighed myself. I was 241. I was so uncomfortable. I was bloated. I was running to the bathroom, I'd say 3 and 4 times. like as soon as I ate something like Mediterranean stuff. And the next morning I weighed myself. I was literally 234 pounds from 241. So there's just something like really off with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say for sure. I mean, it may look, I mean, drink a lot of beer, eat a lot of crap, you're going to gain weight. But sometimes, change.
Not that fast, though.
Well, it catches up. You may also just be constipated. It sounds like if you're able to drop that much weight from going to the bathroom, that you may have just gotten backed up. And that happens sometimes, for no clear reason. Sometimes it's a change in diet or travel or what have you. So, if that seems to be helping, I wouldn't try to blow the toilet out, but maybe add a bit of Metamucil, to your diet and just try and keep things moving. It's possible to go every day and still be backed up. And I guess that's what people sometimes forget. So it may just be that you have a little extra stuff in there that needs to make its way out. That could be coupled with some acid reflux and gas that's making you uncomfortable. This over-the-counter treatments for acid reflux like Pepcid and Zantac, that sort of thing. But again, if it's not settling down, you should probably get her checked. But those would be my suggestions.
All right, John, appreciate the call. Best of luck. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dr. John, an email question says, hello, I've suffered from eczema and acne for a long time. My acne isn't irritating me as much as my eczema is, which I would say has progressed to severe now. When I was a child, I used to have it on my legs. It faded. Then as a teenager, it was just on my hands. Now it's in large, noticeable red patches all over my body. I'm constantly sore, itchy, and generally uncomfortable and extremely self-conscious about it. And I'm particularly a bad flare-up at this moment. I've tried multiple moisturizers and lotions, some even prescribed by doctors for help for a bit, but the problem persists. What should I do?
Yeah, so, eczema, which is a skin irritation, inflammation. There's a whole list of treatments from the most basic, which have been mentioned, moisturizers, topical steroids, all the way through the newer immune modifying agents, of which there's a whole list of them. Take forever to get into them. My general suggestion is to follow what we call a ladder of treatment, which means you start with the simple stuff, and if that doesn't work, you move on up the line. Now, if your own family doctor isn't comfortable with some of these more advanced products, which some are, some aren't, then you'd be looking at trying to get in to see a dermatologist. And if that process hasn't started, I would try to get it started. Lots of options, but it really is finding the right fit for an individual given their condition, where it is, if they have other health problems, side effects, that sort of thing.
Is eczema, is it seasonal? Do changes in the seasons make it worse?
For some people, yes. For some people, it's fairly, constant. It, just sort of depends what's triggering it. For some people, it can be cold weather. For some people, it can be any sort of contact with chemicals and that sort of thing. But again, everybody's different. Is there
obviously no cure for it?
Well, cure is relative.
Right.
A lot of these drugs can significantly suppress the reaction that's causing it and make it quite livable. But again, coming back to, sometimes it's contact stuff too, right? If you know that, certain soap triggers you, you stay away from that soap. If you know that certain types of pollen trigger it, you try to stay away from those sorts of things.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're going to take a break. Dr. John's here on the other side. This is the Todd Veinotte Show. You're listening to House Calls. We're back in a minute. Welcome back. This is House Calls. He is Dr. John Gillis. He's here to answer your medical questions. If you have a question for the doctor, lines are wide open, folks. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Dr. John, an email question. It says, hey, Dr. John, the roof of my mouth in the back of it feels like a sore throat or the beginnings of strep, except it's only on the back of the roof of my mouth, and my throat doesn't hurt. But it really looks weird. Am I getting strep throat?
It's very hard to say. The hallmarks of strep throat are white spots on the tonsils, fever, usually the absence of a cough and swollen glands. And, if those things are present, you could well be. I usually suggest, people in these cases manage it conservatively with anti-inflammatories like ibuprofen or Tylenol. And, some of the sprays or, gargling salt water, anything that can keep the symptoms under control to try and, preclude the sometimes overuse of antibiotics. But without looking at it, it's hard to say for sure.
Strep throat happens all year round. It's not just a wintertime thing, right?
That's right.
So it's not.
There are people who are carriers who always test positive for it. There are a lot of people that get treated for it, and they don't have, definitive evidence that's what it is. And I think we'd like, a little more information in those regards.
Right. Can you grow out of it, Dr. John? The reason I asked that is I was a yearly strep throat guy. I used to get it all the time, and then all of a sudden it just stopped, and I'm knocking on wood here. I haven't had it for years and years.
Yeah, it's sure. You do hear people not getting it anymore. Is that because it was definitively treated? Is that because you haven't been exposed to it anymore? It's hard to say. So yeah, that definitely can happen, but it's hard to say clearly the exact why.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Dr. John, we did the time change thing this past weekend. It's dark now at like 5:15. That begins the onset for people like me who get seasonal affective disorder, a lack of vitamin D. Any recommendations to get through this time of the year until we start to see more light?
One of them is vitamin D supplementation. Pretty straightforward. Pick up at the pharmacy. The other is, if you do have a minute, and it's not too cold out, get outside and get a little sunlight, get a little walk, and try to optimize your situation. So, those are my best suggestions.
How about those lights? Do those lights work?
Yeah, they do. Most people don't need that.
Right.
It's a certain type of light that provides. Just sitting at home under your lamp isn't going to do much. But if there are people who do get seasonal depression, seasonal affective disorder that do need light therapy, and if you do notice that you are severely affected, so be it.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Got an email question that says, hey, Dr. John, started to run again. Made the mistake of not eating before running, so it was a lot harder than usual last week. But I stopped early because I got a sharp stabbing pain in my chest. It lasted for about 45 minutes. It did get better, but it wasn't very nice at first. I like to think that I'm pretty healthy and eat pretty well, but this is unusual. I have been dizzy a lot lately, though, and the doctor said it's likely dehydration. Should I continue to run?
Dehydration shouldn't make you have pain in your chest. I guess it depends on a lot of factors as to, if you're having pain only when you run, that can be a bit concerning. But again, it depends on age, fitness, and health. It could be a lot of different things. It could be muscular, it could be spasm, it could be acid reflux. You probably want to get a more definitive answer than that. But again, without a little more info, it's hard to say.
I would imagine if it hurts, you probably shouldn't do it, right?
Yeah, generally speaking, that is the way. But sometimes these things can be serious, and sometimes they're not much at all.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's dig into the email bag here again, Dr. John. I've got a couple of questions, so I'm going to kind of try to combine them both from gentlemen in their 40s who say that they're in great health, have good blood work, and their prostates have been checked and no issues there, but are continually having to go to the bathroom at night. Is there something else that we should be looking for?
Yeah, again, some of it is intake. A lot of people who drink too much water or other things in the evening, caffeine, has a diuretic effect, makes people pee. Alcohol makes people pee. Some people with what they ingest during the day, they ingest irritants. Caffeine and alcohol are among them, but, some other things as well that can irritate your bladder. And even though your bladder may not be full, you feel like a sensation where you have to go. You get some bladder neck spasm. There are some treatments for that, bladder's not full, but your body's telling you have to go. And there are some drugs out there that can help with that. So I would look at the I guess, the environmental factors, what the intake is and that sort of thing. And then if it's symptom relief, talk to your doc about what the options are, take it from there.
It can be debilitating for some, right? Having to get up 2 or 3 or 4 times a night.
Yeah, it breaks your sleep up, and and for some people too, it's they can have it during the day. That you're always people always chasing the bathroom, and that's not much fun either. So
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255 is the number. Dr. John, a couple of questions here as well with regards to the oncoming winter season, and some say that when the wind gets colder, they start to get things like hives. Other than covering up, is there a topical ointment or something that they can use to help with their hive condition in the wintertime?
It really depends on the cause. I mean, if it's cold weather, you want to eliminate exposure to cold and cover the area up. If it's another allergen, then avoid that allergen. If it's a barrier cream you're talking about, but it's a fairly general question. It's a bit tough to answer without knowing what the cause is.
Obviously, and I think we've talked about this before, the different reactions to different changes in the temperatures as we change seasons, right?
Absolutely. Everybody's body reacts different, so.
And one more email question here before we take the break. It says, "Hey, Dr. John, I've started to have this pain at the bone in the back of my ear. I think it's the mastoid bone. I don't have any pain in my ear or any discharge, only on the left side and not the right side. Wondering how I go about this. I'm currently looking for a job and don't have health insurance."
So can you read the last bit of the question again? Go about what? I didn't quite catch that.
I wasn't wondering how I go about dealing with this. I'm currently looking for a job, and this person doesn't have any benefits, any insurance.
Yeah, well, I mean, if the problem was with the area behind the ear, I mean, you don't need a job or benefits to use your health card to get see
right.
the walk-in clinic, talk to Maple, or go to the hospital and take a look. If there's no discharge or pus coming out anywhere or through the ear, then it may just be an inflammatory thing, and a trial of some ibuprofen or Aleve is reasonable. But again, if you're not sure, you should always get it checked. But again, you don't need insurance for that.
I think they're worried about prescription drugs, probably.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps, but again, you start with the simple stuff, and it could be something as simple as an ear infection. They can check that at a walk-in clinic or even one of the pharmacy clinics, doing a great job of checking some of these minor problems.
I think we talked about this speaking of pharmacies, I think we talked about this before, Dr. John. We had an interview earlier this week with a study that's underway now at Dalhousie that they're looking at moving some more diagnoses to the pharmacy level. How does the system work now, and does it help you guys out in the ER?
I mean, there's a list of conditions that pharmacies can deal with, and they're increasingly, setting up dedicated clinics, which I think is useful. I mean, there's still limitations on what they're able to do, and they're not open all the time. So, we still get the traffic in the evening and at night. I mean, generally speaking, anything that can be done to get people better access is helpful, as long as it's the people who are well trained to address the problem, and in this case, that is the case with the pharmacies. But again, as you've heard me rant about many times, it comes back to need and efficiency. You need people to go to the place that best serves what they actually need at the time, and often they don't have that. And we need to find a way to balance quality with actually, getting people the service that they need that is not at a snail's pace.
All right, the number is 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dr. John's here after the news to answer your questions. Lines are wide open, folks. If you want to get that question answered, you'll get right in. There's lots of room, I will say. We're going to take the break. Blake's going to update us on what's going on, and we will be back. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. See you in a minute. having trouble hearing. There we are. That sounds better. I had my earpiece turned down. Anyway, this is House Calls. This is your opportunity to get a question asked from our Dr. John Gillis, who is graciously joining us here, giving up some of his time to answer your questions. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. I go back to the email bag, Dr. John. We've talked about animal bites in the past. This one's a little bit different, though. The emailer writes that I had my thumb bitten by a hamster. It was deep, bled a lot, immediately swelling and throbbing. I called my doctor, or the walking clinic, rather, and was prescribed a tetanus booster and antibiotics. I got the booster the same day. Didn't take the antibiotics, which was very stupid, this person writes, and had people argue with me that I didn't need them and the risk of antibiotic resistance. I already tend to be cautious with taking them due to bad experiences in the past and potential side effects. Doctor didn't explicitly state to take them as a preventative measure. It seemed to be more of an optional thing. Did I do the right thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, these bites don't raise any more red flags than any other bite. There's not, wild hamsters running around with rabies and that sort of thing. But any animal that punctures the skin can introduce bacteria, and I would say most of the time with minor bites, they can be cleaned well, monitored, and perhaps treated with a topical antibiotic. The topicals in many cases do more just to keep more stuff out than to actually kill anything. And we often suggest, monitoring to see if there's any sign of things. There are a few exceptions, human bites on the hand, which are usually the result of fist meeting teeth.
Yep.
Can be a little more likely to get infected. There's a few things like cat scratches that are more likely to get infected. And we sort of address them bit by bit. But, with this sort of thing, the hamster bite, probably wasn't that deep unless, it was a rare giant hamster. And, probably was, relatively unlikely to get infected. The advice was given if it's progressing, then, certainly it would be reasonable to fill the antibiotic prescription.
And then it goes to some of the argument that you make on this program a lot is that there's a lot of antibiotics floating around there, and they get prescribed a lot, I will say.
Yeah, and look, it's always a judgment call, and not to say anyone's right or wrong. It's just it's generally a matter of trying to determine based on where it is, how deep it is, what type of critter or person it was. Does it need antibiotics? And it's accurate is that we shouldn't just give them out to everybody because resistance does happen, and then we run into problems.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Lines wide open, folks. If you have a question for Dr. Gillis, great opportunity to get it answered quickly. Another email question, and I'm getting to the end of my email bag here. Anyway, hey, Dr. John, I've struggled with headaches my entire life. This year I also struggled with dizziness, which comes randomly and basically makes me unable to walk. This was never the case before. Such an episode lasts usually for a couple of minutes, and then I can function normally, but I keep having vertigo-like sensations for a couple of weeks after. I feel like the surface under my body is moving, or that the objects are shaking as if I was watching a video recording with a poor camera. I got an episode again a couple of weeks ago, and it's only been getting worse, recurring dizziness and recurring headaches. Last Friday, I got an intense headache. I took some Tylenol and some Advil, and it didn't work. The pain was excruciating. It woke me up. It was right behind my face on both sides of my head. And once I took those two drugs, it seemed to relieve it for a couple of hours. What should be my course of action?
Yes, I mean, dizziness is a tough complaint because people often mean different things by it. Some people describe it as feeling like they're going to fall straight down, some to the side. One of the classics is what we call vertigo, which is a sensation of spinning like you've been on a merry-go-round. So it is important, to have a proper diagnosis to determine what's happening if it's anything more serious. A lot of these things are transient. If it's going away in a couple days and you're not having worsening symptoms, sometimes you can let it go. Generally speaking, worsening headaches or worsening symptoms, you should get checked. Again, some of it comes back to age and other health issues, right? If you're 20 years old and you're dizzy, you're probably not having a stroke. If you're 75, Doesn't mean you are, but it means your risk would be higher. So try to balance those things and probably get her checked out.
What would be obviously you get blood testing and that kind of thing done?
Yeah, blood testing isn't very useful for most types of dizziness, other than the fact that, sometimes it's a sugar or electrolyte issue. I mean, what we're really trying to rule out is strokes, that sort of thing, which require imaging. And again, in a younger person, that's much less likely. Without the information, I can't answer that. So yeah, blood work is sometimes part of it. Sometimes it's related to an infection, but it's a fairly subjective complaint, which needs someone to kind of put it together.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Hey, Dr. John, another email question. This started back last week. I had a sharp pain under my right ribs, got a crazy hot flash. It didn't last very long, maybe 10 minutes. Then on Friday, started getting a very bad pain in the mid to lower back and side. I got sick when the pain worsened, and then a tiny bit of blood showed up in my urine. So I thought that I would go and get checked out, but I took some ibuprofen and a nap, and I felt better. Any ideas what this could be? I'm worried it's kidney stones.
Where does it say the pain was?
Under right ribs.
Yeah, I mean, that's where your gallbladder is if it's in the front. Kidney stones, tend to present in the back or lower. You can get blood in your urine from kidney stones. Based on that description, it's a bit hard to answer the question. But, it could be. I would, again, if it happens again, get someone to lay a hand on you.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Joe to the show. Joe, how are you?
Hey, Dan. What's going on? I'm good, thanks.
Your question, please.
How are you doing? And hello, Dr. John. I got a question. I've had back surgery before, and I went to see a doctor, and she prescribed, I don't know, or I'm getting an MRI pretty soon, and I don't think I need it, and I don't know how to cancel it. I'm 50 years old. My back's worked most of my life, so pain comes and goes. You know what I mean? I don't think I need it, but it could be better served for somebody else, I guess.
Well, the way to cancel it, I guess, is two ways. Whoever ordered it can call, or you could just call wherever you've been booked yourself, ask to be put through to the MRI department, and just say you don't need it, and they can cancel you.
Okay. Yeah, I don't even have a date yet, so, but back's feeling better. It'll come and go kind of thing, so.
If that's the case. Well, you could still ask them to look for the referral and cancel it, or you could ask your doctor to do that.
Thanks, Joe. Best of luck, my friend. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. MRIs, Dr. John, I hear that outside of emergencies that the wait list is quite long to get access to one.
Yeah, it really can be, and it comes back to what we end up talking about probably more than we'd like to is it's people who need them. You really want them to have access to. A lot of them get ordered that, in my opinion, don't need to be ordered. For minor back pain, muscle aches, that sort of thing. And some of that's on the health provider, some of that's on patient expectation, and we try to balance those things. To make sure the people that need them can get them. And if you pulled your back at softball, you don't need to be rushing into the MRI scanner. But if you've had pain for months and it's getting worse, and you're having weakness and numbness and tingling, then you do need it. And finding that balance is key. And
the last question I have, Dr. John, here is from an emailer that writes, had a blood test done last Monday. Haven't heard from my doctor on results. How long normally does it take to get results and to get notified?
Well, there's a couple things there. Most people can access their own results on the My Health NS app. It varies wildly. Some docs will not call with normal results, and they'll just expect patients to arrange a routine follow-up. If there's something urgent, we would typically reach out. But I would maybe take a look online to see if you can see the result. And if you're concerned, that you're not getting results, try to make an appointment.
And this might be an elementary question, Dr. John, but can somebody like me interpret the results of a blood test?
It depends what it is. I mean, if you see something that's, wildly out of whack, it might, trigger you to, expedite asking a question about it.
Right.
It is tough to get a lot of tests thrown at you when you don't know the context, what they actually mean. So, yes and no, I guess is what I would say.
All right, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We'll go to the phones after the break. You're listening to House Calls on the Todd Veinotte Show. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. He is Dr. John Gillis. This is House Calls. Your opportunity to have a medical question answered on a Wednesday here in Nova Scotia. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Kate to the show. Kate, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for taking my call.
Your question, please.
I've had some chest pain for like 2 years now. I went for an x-ray. There was nothing there, did blood work, nothing there. And so it's not going away. I don't feel it when I'm breathing deeply, so I assume it's not lung related. It kind of feels to me like it's like rib related, but I don't know for sure. And my doctor, can't seem to figure out what the problem is. But when I, sink in my chest or puff it out, like I can kind of feel it. Like I don't know if it's a problem between my ribs or with my ribs. I don't know, but I was hoping to get maybe your thoughts around that. It's a little concerning because it is on the, right side where my heart is. So closer to my sternum, I would say.
If your heart's on your right side, we're going to write up a very impressive paper in the New England Journal of Medicine.
Oh, sorry. You're right, my left.
So, look, we see a lot of nonspecific chest pain, and, we stratify the risk based on the story, based on age, risk factors, when it's happening. What have you had done to this point?
Honestly, just an x-ray and blood work done, and then kind of checking for blood pressure to make sure that that's not heart related. Like there hasn't been like an echo. They did do an ECG and the rhythms came back fine, other than I, have a arrhythmia and I've always had it. But other than that, they can't seem to figure out what it might be. And she said that it might be muscle related, but I can't seem to find it myself. Like if I was to rub out a knot or something, it's not there. I'm 36. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I mean, the odds of you having ischemic cardiac pain, like a blockage at 36, are pretty slim. And that was probably part of your doctor's analysis when they did an ECG. I mean, you really don't need a treadmill test. Has anybody tried simply treating the pain with a course of anti-inflammatories or muscle relaxants?
No, but I have had, Tylenol and Advil for other reasons over the course of the 2 years, and it doesn't seem to go away. So I don't know if I've, damaged my rib, or if there's some kind of inflammation between ribs that happen, or, my mind starts to reel okay, well, it's in my chest. Is it breast cancer? Can you feel pain from breast cancer? I don't know. So,
so
either the things that.
I can't answer that about breast cancer. If you're worried about that, someone needs to examine you. Treating this type of pain, if we think it's ribs, needs to be consistent, usually for at least a week. A lot of people take a one-off Tylenol or ibuprofen, don't take enough and don't take it long enough. Concerned about something more, then you'd be looking at other imaging. You'd be looking at a CT scan of your chest to see if there's something more refined that we can see. You'd be looking at, maybe a treadmill test at some point. It doesn't sound to me like it's something serious, but it's obviously bothering you, so you need some more work done, I would say.
Thanks, Kate. Appreciate the call, and best of luck. Dr. John, we're going to cut you loose a couple of minutes early, give you back 9 minutes on your Wednesday.
Sounds good.
Have a good one. Talk to you next week. That is Dr. John Gillis. He's here every Wednesday to answer your medical-related questions. All right, we're going to do, of course, the open hour here coming up after the news at noon. There's an awful lot to talk about. The federal budget dropped yesterday, and there were a lot of things in that 409-page document that I'm sure that many of you would like to discuss here on the program, and that's what we're going to dedicate the open hour to, is to the federal budget. But the big story, of course, has a very strong Nova Scotia connection to it, and that was the crossing of the floor by Nova Scotia MP Chris D'Entremont yesterday. After the budget dropped, Mr. D'Entremont announced that he had told the leader of the opposition and the House leader and all of the people in the Conservative Party that were in the know that he was quitting caucus and was going to join the government side. He was crossing the floor, as it is called. It's something that is a long tradition, I guess, in Canadian politics. We've seen it at the federal level. We've seen it at the provincial level. And we've seen it most recently here in Nova Scotia with Brendan Maguire, who left the PC party, the Liberal Party, and went and joined the PCs, and is now a cabinet minister here in Nova Scotia. There's many of examples. That's just the most recent one that comes off the top of my head. I have a concern with floor crossing. I have a concern that it is the best way that I can describe it as undemocratic. And I laid this out earlier in the show, and for those of you that are just joining us, my thoughts on it are that you seek election as a member of a political party, particularly at the provincial and federal levels. Well, it's the way that it works. There is, and I'm putting quotes around this, no party politics at the municipal level. But at the federal level, when we have an election, there's a candidate that runs for each party in a riding. Usually, that's how it works. And I will suggest that some people vote for the person that's representing that party in the riding. But I think, and I might be out to lunch here, but I think more people vote for the party that person represents. And by extension, that party's leader, who they think would make the best prime minister. It's the way that I think the way that our system works these days. Now, when you seek election and you go to Ottawa, this would be his third term as a member for now the riding. It used to be Nova or West Nova. Now it's Acadie Annapolis is the new terminology for it. When you go there and represent that riding as a member of a party, I would surmise that a number of the votes that you received weren't necessarily for you, but for the party and for the leader. And when you make a decision to quit that party and join another, are you representing the wishes of your constituents? My personal opinion is if you are at odds with your party, if something has changed, if a change in policy or a change in direction has you taking the Pierre Trudeau walk in the snow, and you can no longer, with good conscience, represent that party, then shouldn't you tender your resignation and step down and then go through the process of a by-election in that riding? And let the voters decide if they do want you to represent them, even though you've changed political teams. That is what I think is the most appropriate way for one to change parties midstream in a government. I don't think crossing the floor represents the wishes of the people that put you there, is the way that I look at it. Might be something you want to talk about when we open up the telephone lines. We're going to do that right after the news here at noon. Of course, the federal budget delivered yesterday, a $78 billion deficit announced by the Prime Minister, more than he promised. It's going to cost you and I and every taxpayer in Canada $55.6 billion, with a B, billion dollars every year just to pay the interest on that. On the debt, not on the deficit, on the accumulated debt of the country. The Canadian military is seeing a big increase. I know that Halifax has a strong a connection with the military. I'm looking out at my window right now, and I can see some of the military infrastructure here. They're getting a tremendous shot in the arm. I think it was $81 billion in spending. Steve Murphy raising an interesting point that the hand-wringing and the consternation over the ship's contract should be solidified now. It should be no longer a discussion if these 14 ships are going to get built. With that kind of money in the floating around in the Defense Department, you would think that that's a foregone conclusion. And I'm putting quotes around it. It's easy for the government to say that they're spending this on procurement. Does that count against the GDP? I don't know how that works. But what I worry is that all this $81 million is going to get caught up in some procurement process, like we saw the ship's contract, and it'll be years and years and years and years and years before the military ever sees a penny of that. That may also be something you want to talk about. We're going to take that break. We're getting an update on the news, and then on the other side of it, it's time for the Mid-Week Meltdown, the Wednesday open hour, after the break. Welcome back. This is the open hour. The lines are open. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Don't want to take up a lot of time, and to get to the phones as quickly as possible. But I think that I saw a tweet when I was having a conversation with Steve Murphy from the past president of the Conservative Party of Canada. He lives here. It's Rob Batherson. You've heard him on this radio station many times. In fact, he's been on panels with us in the past before he took on his new the term as the past president now of the Conservative Party of Canada. And he put out on Twitter last night, and I quote, "Chris D'Entremont's decision to resign from the Conservative caucus is the worst personal betrayal I have ever experienced in 30-plus years in politics. I have supported Chris in many ways, provincially and federally, starting from when we first met working in Premier John Ham's government in 1999, and continued through to intervening on his behalf, among many others, to have Pierre Poilievre come to his riding during the 2024 World Acadian Congress. I recognize that Chris is ultimately accountable to his constituents in Acadie, Annapolis, not to me or anybody else outside of his riding. Yet, after the last election, Chris D'Entremont told me repeatedly that he would be Nova Scotia's voice in Canada's official opposition. He has deprived Nova Scotians of that voice and broke his personal word to me. I never imagined I would be in a position to not trust Chris D'Entremont." That tweet from Rob Batherson, who is the now past president of the Conservative Party of Canada. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go right to the phones. We welcome Mason to the show. Mason, how are you?
Not too bad. How you doing?
Good. What's on your mind today, sir?
All right. Well, I was just I agree with you for the most part. Like if you're going to cross I don't think you should be allowed to cross the aisle, right? I think I think you should be allowed to leave your party, though. I do think you should have to become an independent. Like correct. I think if you want to leave your party, that's, if there's a leader that you completely disagree with, that's fine, but I think like Bill Casey did up here in a couple of times. In Colchester, Cumberland. He disagreed over the Atlantic Accords. He left the Conservative Party and he ran as an independent and won pretty handily. And
then ran as a Liberal and won pretty handily. So he played for all the teams.
A bit later, and that was kind of an anti-Harper thing, I think. That
I agree.
Did that for. But that was all my thoughts on it. Was just that I think you should have to become an independent. I don't think you should be allowed to just join, the opposite party. Really.
I agree with you, Mason. 100%.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We saw it here 2 weeks ago, right? If there was this big blow up or this big difference of opinion within Tim Houston's caucus that Becky D'Entremont, Becky Druhan, too many D's, felt it necessary to leave that caucus, she sits as an independent. She didn't go to the other team or to another team. She's sitting as an independent, right? And it's that course of action, or resign your seat completely and face by-election in your constituency. Because at the end of the day, remember, politicians are supposed to answer to us. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. To the phones, we welcome Mark to the show. Mark, how are you?
Oh, I'm good, Dan. Thank you very much for taking my call.
Sure.
So nothing like having my thunder stolen from me from the last caller. So I was going to say that I think if you instead of crossing the floor, you should sit as an independent. The only thing I would add right now is I don't like the idea of resigning completely, because then the constituents would be left with zero representative for possibly up to 6 or 7 months. I think it's 6 months.
I can't remember what the exact date is. You're correct.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say that. But, yeah, and to just expand on Mason's point, yeah, there's been plenty of examples, obviously. Scott Bryson came to mind, for example. Now, he did cross. But what I'm trying to say is there are examples. Elizabeth Smith McCrossin is someone who didn't.
Yep.
That if you are going to be elected on your own merit, if you're popular enough, then that will be the ultimate test. But in terms of Rob Batherson's comments, I believe him. It probably was deeply troubling to him, probably still is. Fortunately, that is the way the system is set up. But I do think that sitting as an independent would have been a more honorable thing to do, at least for Chris. And that's really all I got.
Appreciate it, Mark.
Thank you.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Mr. D'Entremont was before cameras earlier this morning, and you heard the clip in the newscast here at noon. And he has said during that press conference that he believes he is not the only one that is considering this course of action, but said he would leave that to the individual to tell their story. So I'm wondering, floor crossing aside, if there's a fracture in the Conservative caucus, if Mr. D'Entremont is correct, and others are considering leaving the Conservative Party, if there's a fracture in that caucus, and if it is going to impact the decision in January on the leadership of the party currently under Mr. Pierre Poilievre. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Mike to the show. Mike, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. Thanks.
What's on your mind?
I agree with if you want to leave your party that you were voted into, you have to run as an independent, but only until a by-election is called.
Right.
Just because you know how our system works, you don't know if those people were voting for him or if they're voting for the Conservatives.
Yes, you're correct.
So there should have to be a by-election. You shouldn't just be allowed to walk across the floor.
And sometimes, and I haven't seen anything today that has indicated this, but sometimes get into a fairly plumb position when you cross the floor. There's usually some kind of carrot that gets dangled, right?
Well, that's what I would almost put money on. The next cabinet shuffle, he's going to become a minister. I wouldn't be one bit surprised if that happened, but
I guess we'll wait and see.
Only time will tell.
Absolutely.
My other thing is
Sure.
The budget. Is this fall budget now the new norm, or are we going to get another budget in April of 26?
I think
how does this work?
I think that's the $10,000 or $100,000 or $100 million question. I don't know if we're going to get fall budgets and spring economic statements. I don't know how that works now.
Yeah, that's you hit this great big budget, and then all of a sudden do it over again in April, and just spend more money. You get to spend almost twice in one calendar year. It's crazy.
It's like Christmas.
It would be, what?
All right.
Have
Mike,
a good day, Dan.
Take care. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I think it's getting lost. Maybe it's just here because Chris D'Entremont is a Nova Scotian MP, but what's getting lost is that there was some promises that were broken in this budget, right? Mr. Carney had said that he was going to spend and it was going to bring a deficit, but this is much larger than he had said it was going to be, right? And the affordability question. There's some long-term planning in it, and I think every budget has long-term planning in it. But as Steve Murphy said, and I agree with him, there's no immediate relief in there for you and I and everybody else. There's no, call it what you will, supplement to offset high prices at the grocery store or regulation on the grocery store or anything along those lines, right? There's a lot of big spending in this budget and a lot of what could be potential good news for the economy down the line. But the day after the budget, I don't think much has changed. Other than, of course, the makeup of the House of Commons. Lots of lines open if you want to weigh in on the budget or weigh in on the crossing of the floor by Nova Scotia MP Chris D'Entremont, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. The open hour continues after the break. Welcome back. This is the open hour on the Todd Veinotte Show. Lots of lines open if you want to get on to the conversation. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The big news of the day, of course, the surprise crossing of the floor by Nova Scotia MP Chris D'Entremont, leaving the Conservative Party after the budget was delivered yesterday and joining the government benches, joining the Liberal caucus. I think he's in his first Liberal cabinet meeting or caucus meeting today. Haven't heard if there was any, carrot dangled there, if he's going to get some kind of committee or some kind of post, parliamentary secretary, minister. Haven't heard anything along those lines. He did say in his moment before the cameras this morning that he is not alone and that there are several others. I don't know if he had an actual number, but there are others who are considering the very same thing. So it leads me to believe that maybe not all is well within the Conservative caucus. Maybe there's a fracture happening there. We know that Pierre Poilievre is going to face a leadership review in January. If it's a true leadership review or not remains to be the question remains to be asked. I'm hearing that it's not going to be to the grassroots. It's going to be a convention-style thing, but only invited delegates, and the grassroots of the party are not going to be able to have a vote. If you consider that a leadership review, then I guess that's how they do it. But is there a perhaps fracture happening in the conservative world? And can just think about this for a minute, right? If we see, and I know this is crystal balling, right? And take it as you will, but if we see any more defections from the Conservatives to sit as independents or to sit as Liberals or even to sit as NDP, if they go to the Liberal Party and the Liberals get to majority territory, then Mr. Poilievre's got to wait, 3.5 years before the next election? That's a long time in politics. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go to the phones and welcome Kevin to the show. Kevin, how are you?
Good day, Dan. How you doing?
I'm all right. What's on your mind?
I'm calling about politics, of course, but
sure.
I'm missing the Three Musketeers there that we just lost.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I used to get a kick out of Michael up there. How he used to wind himself.
Oh, he would be the first in line today, wouldn't he?
He would. He would. You got to admire people with some spunk, eh?
Yeah, he certainly was a true blue Cape Brettoner. I'll give him that.
And like Gloria, she's got the spunk too. Yeah. But anyway, moving on. I think that the Liberal Party should, the people of Canada should take their credit cards away.
Yeah, there's $78 billion deficit. They're spending $78 billion more than they're taking in this year. That's a huge number.
And everybody knows when you got a credit card and you keep piling up stuff. Except for me, I don't do that. But I'm fortunate enough that I've worked hard my whole life and put stuff away.
Right.
But anyway, I feel sorry for these young people because they've got to bear the brunt of all this.
Right. It's not going to get paid off. We're not going to pay the credit card off by the end of the year, that's for sure.
No, and it's coming more obvious that the deck is rigged. It's
how do you mean?
The deck is stacked. Yeah.
How do you mean?
Well, it's just they're playing crazy politics. Like I agree with the earlier callers that you shouldn't be allowed to just walk across the floor. I mean that's a little treasonous or something, Like,
well, I think it's anti-democratic. I don't know about treason, but I think it's anti-democratic. I don't think it's what the people of Acadie, Annapolis want.
Yeah, and like you keep saying, like the government works for the people.
It does, or it's supposed to, I guess.
supposed to. They've lost track of that.
Yep.
And I don't know. I just if you take a close look around the world, all this stuff that's going on, they got our first communist mayor in the biggest city in the USA.
Not
now.
Communist. There's a difference between communism and socialist. He's a socialist. He's not a communist.
He's a Democrat socialist.
Yeah.
That's an oxymoron, isn't it?
Well, not really, but he's certainly not a communist.
Well, if you're a socialist, you know it's unequal. It's equal poverty. It's the opposite of capitalism, which is unequaled wealth.
Your opinion. Okay.
Yep.
All right,
anyway,
man.
I agree with most of the callers that I smell a rat, maybe 2 rats.
Or more. There might be more coming. Kevin, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Big difference between socialism and communism. Let's go to the phones and welcome Matthew to the show. Matthew, how are you?
Good. I'd like to turn the dial a little bit, change the subject,
Sure.
if you don't mind.
That's what the open hour is about.
Yeah, not sure if people know, but there's been some construction being done at Martinique Beach Provincial Park.
I haven't been out there this year. I haven't seen what's going on.
It started in mid-September. I'm surprised they started so early. It was kind of disappointing because you can hardly get to the beach.
Oh, my goodness.
What
are they doing?
Summer, technically, they're making a considerably larger parking area.
Parking lot. Okay.
And in order to do this, they had to cut down many, many trees and somewhat of the, I wouldn't call it a forest. I don't know what the other term would be, but the treed area there. So if it's just interesting how it works. You go to the beach for the tranquility, and I go there for. I used to like that treed area. There were some picnic tables, and
yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
If that's what they cleared, I can't think what else it would be, but that's potentially all gone, flat, and the dump trucks are non-stop on that road, East Pepeswick. And I just think people are in for a bit of a surprise. For better or for worse, it's just, you're damned if you darned if you do, darned if you don't.
Yeah, I hear you.
People want more parking, but this is the cost.
It's the complaint I hear about Martinique, right? In the height of summer, is that there's not enough places to park. But I get it. We're gonna give up some of the reason why we go there to get more parking.
Yeah, and as somewhat of a local from there, I can't say I don't like it, but
all right,
I don't know. I'll have to see the finished project, but I try
sure.
to let people know that's going on, that they can expect more parking there next summer at the expense of the treed areas coming down.
Well, I appreciate you sharing with us, Matthew.
No problem.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I haven't been to them all. I remember that actually Rick Howe was the one who turned me on to Martinique Beach. It's my favorite. And again, I will say I haven't been to them all, and I know that everybody has their favorite beach. But Martinique Beach is a beautiful place in Nova Scotia, and I hope that this construction isn't going to damage that in any way, because it seems almost wrong that we complain that there's not enough parking, yet we're going to give up part of the reason why we go to that beach to create more parking so we can go to the beach. It's a catch-22, is it not? Very quickly, before we take the break, we're going to continue this conversation, of course, on the other side of the news at the bottom of the hour. I will say that we, and this will put a smile on Vanessa's face, I will say that we did have Chris D'Entremont booked to join the show tomorrow. We did that well before even the budget was delivered. When the news broke about his decision to leave the Conservative caucus and join the government benches, that interview got canceled, and I would suspect that was because it was the Conservative Party Communications Department that booked the interview for us. So that was immediately canceled. Now, Vanessa has been working the phones extremely hard. Doesn't she do a great job? She does a fantastic job. Anyway, she's been working the phones hard today to try and get in touch with Mr. D'Entremont and with the Liberal Party, as he's now a party member, I guess, to have him join the show here and answer some questions for us. So it's not for lack of effort, folks. We're trying to get him to come on the show. It's just a little difficult to get a hold of Mr. D'Entremont these days. Taking a break. Open Hour continues on the other side. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in a minute. Welcome back. As I said and have said throughout the show, federal budgets are big documents. There's 409 pages. The thing looks like a phone book when you take a look at it. And more of the nuggets are starting to come to the surface in these things. We've talked about, of course, the broad stroke things, right? Like the military was the big one, and there's some infrastructure funding for his big projects, right? That was another one. And then the emissions cap in Alberta was a big deal. Also, what we haven't really talked a lot about, and I'm looking at the television right now, and the public service unions are starting to react to it, is that Mark Carney has said that he's going to reduce the size of the federal bureaucracy. Easy for me to say. The public sector service is going to get slashed by almost 40,000 workers by 2028-29. So there's a lot still to fall out of this, and I would imagine that we're going to have some implications here, as many will tell you. Atlantic Canada has disproportionately more federal workers than the rest of the country, right? Where there's big offices here, big offices in Charlottetown, big offices in St. John's, and of course Miramichi, and so on and so forth. So it will be impacted here, and it might be something that you want to talk about. Lots of open lines if you want to join the conversation. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's get back to the phones and welcome Joe to the show. Joe, how are you?
Hey, not so bad. How are you doing today?
Good. What's on your mind, sir?
I'd like to talk a bit about Chris D'Entremont crossing the floor.
Sure.
I think there's a little bit of fake outrage on the Conservatives' part. This is not a new thing.
Nope.
People go back and forth across the floor. You go back to just 2006. David Emerson, he was an MP for Vancouver, changed from the Liberals to the Conservatives, and he joined Stephen Harper's cabinet 2 weeks after the election, right?
Right.
And Ann Cool, she was appointed to the Senate as a Liberal. And that's back in 2004. She announced she'd be crossing the floor to sit as a Conservative.
Right.
It happens all the time. Ideally, they should sit as an independent, but really, I don't think either party wants that. They want them to be able to cross the floor.
But should it be, I don't want to cut you off, Joe, but should it be what the party wants, or should it be what the electorate wants?
Well, it should be what the electorate wants, but you think about it, both parties have had long majorities, and none of them have ever passed any kind of legislation requiring that a defecting member sits as an independent.
Yeah,
they don't want it. They want them to come over.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
In situations like this, right? No, I get it.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's both parties. That's the Conservatives and the Liberals. And if you look back, you can research it. It's happened a lot all through history, both parties, people leaving for whatever reason. So it's nothing new. So to me, it's a little bit of a fake outrage. They're betraying this and that. It's more common than people think.
Appreciate the call, Joe.
You too. Take care.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Lots of emails coming in on this, as you can imagine. By the way, lines are wide open, people. If you want to get in to join the conversation, perfect time to do so. This one comes to us from Carl. It says, those in the CPC, that would be the Conservative Party of Canada, who claimed D'Entremont's floor crossing was due only to sour grapes, that he didn't get what he wanted. Well, that comment from his former colleagues who once liked him also sounds like sour grapes. Also, this email from Mark, and it reads, couldn't agree with your assessment on Mr. D'Entremont more. He is crossing the floor for his own self-interest and abandoning his voters and community. In my opinion, he has soured his political career and has lost the trust of all voters. If he can do this to one party, then he can do it to the next party. He calls it pathetic. As for the budget, all the young Canadians can expect now is heavy taxation for years to come as we go deeper and deeper into debt. And this email from Hugh, he says, I believe crossing the floor isn't a big issue. The last vote for that riding was very close. It was only 500 votes that separated the Liberal and the PC. And we were just discussing that, Hugh, outside in the newsroom during the news break here. And you're right. It was, I think it was the tightest race in Nova Scotia during the federal election night, and I would suspect that that Mr. D'Entremont got some votes based on who he is. Been a politician for a long time, and some people will vote based on name recognition. There's no doubt about that. And I'm wondering if he hedged his bets on something along those lines, thinking that if he continues that support and he gets some of the Liberal support that voted against him last time, then he would be fine when the next election comes. Because as we know, a government's job on day one of taking office is to get reelected the next time. They'll tell you that it's to do all of these things and improve the economy and to make life better for Canadians and to ease some of the ills. But at the end of the day, politically, their number one job is to get that party reelected. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255 to the phones. And we welcome Fred to the show. Fred, how are you?
Good, Dan. I guess I'm one of the rarefied individuals who's a centrist and believes that the population votes for the individual, not necessarily the party, because right now the PC party is so fractured it isn't funny. I think it was a mistake when the Greens and the PCs joined together, and I think you're starting to see that now. Secondly, if you look at the PC party in and of itself, it's being run by a failed leader. He did not do it well in the last election. And he's not providing any alternatives or solutions to what's happening with us and the tariffs and anything else. He's Mr. Negative, and he runs on being Mr. Negative. And I think the people are sick of it, and I don't think Mr. D'Entremont's going to hurt it well. In fact, I predict if not one or two people crossing the floor, there's going to be 5 or 6 PCs that will be absent from the vote.
We'll hold you to that, Fred. I appreciate it, sir.
All right, bye.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I think Fred misspoke when he said that the PCs and the Greens joined parties. I think he meant to say that the progressive Conservatives, who were led by a Nova Scotian, by the way, and Peter MacKay, joined up with the Reform Party to the whole Unite the Right movement that we saw back in the day and created the Conservative Party that we know today and is in the opposition. I can't disagree with Fred just based on the comments from Mr. D'Entremont and from some of the political pundits that I've been watching and reading over the last 24 hours, suggesting that he may not be alone in his discontent with the direction that the Conservative Party is going. He called himself, during his news conference today, he said that he's been a red Tory his whole life. And it was finding it more and more difficult to find space in the Conservative Party led by Pierre Poilievre. So is he the unicorn, or are there others there that may be considering it, and we may see some more fireworks in the future? That doesn't make it right. And I'm still going to stick to my guns and say, if you have a problem with the direction of a party or its leader or whatever it is, and you no longer can find it in your conscience to sit in that caucus and support that party, then resign and face a by-election if you want to change teams. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. To the phones, we welcome Mark to the show. Mark, how are you?
Good morning, Dan. For crossing the floor, if you want to do that, either you go as an independent or the party that you want to go to, they should have a by-election, and it should be paid by that party that you're going to, not by the taxpayers.
Fair point.
If you got issues with your boss, not my problem. I shouldn't have to pay for it. We pay enough for everything in this damn country, and then we're going into bankruptcy, and this country is, as far as I'm concerned, what I see now, is just going to hell in the next 20 years.
All right, Mark, appreciate it.
Thank you.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I don't know about hell, but it's certainly going down a precarious financial route just based on the numbers that we saw yesterday. $55.1 million. It'd be nice if it was that. $55.1 billion a year. Haven't done the math, but I'm sure it's a significant portion of the money that you and Vanessa and everybody else pays in federal tax every year, every time we buy something with HST or we pay our income tax. $55.1 billion this year to just service the interest on our debt. My experience with the federal budget is the very first question, outside of this one, of course, with the floor crossing, but most of them, the very first question that people ask is, are my taxes going up? And if they're not, they tend to just glaze over. Most people say that they don't want to have anything to do with the federal government, don't vote, whatever. But just think about that for a minute. If we continually deficit spend like we're doing, that number goes up every year. And before we spend $1 on new ships, on new barracks, on housing programs, on infrastructure, on these generational projects that Mark Carney's talking about. $55.1 billion of that just goes to pay somebody who's holding our debt. That's how it impacts you. We're back after the break. All right, welcome back. A few minutes left here before we have to sign off for the day. The open hour continues. Lots of lines open, folks. If you want to get in and get that quick hitter, here's your opportunity. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. We've been focusing, of course, on the floor crossing that Chris d'Entremont did yesterday, joining the Liberal caucus, leaving the government or the opposition side to join the government, almost to a person. Everybody thinks that this is kind of out of bounds. And that if you're going to do something like that, that you should have to face the electorate in some form, either resign or sit as an independent, like we've seen here in the current Houston government with Becky Druhan, right? She could have joined another party and would probably have a better chance of getting some of her constituencies' issues brought to the forefront. Now, Elizabeth Smith McCrossan has been sitting as an independent for a couple of sessions now. And to her credit, does a fantastic job getting stuff before government. But when you're an independent, it's a tough road to try and navigate without funding and without staff and without whatever it is, a question period, even though we don't have sessions at the legislature here for very long. So that would be, I imagine, the same thing in Ottawa. You'd have a very difficult time to carry on as an independent. All of that being said, he's done what he's done. And he is now a member of the Liberal caucus. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I was talking about $55 billion in debt servicing fees. That's what we pay in interest every year. And somebody, and I haven't had a chance to check the math, but Josh writes, hey, Dan, $55 billion, if you divide it by the population, you get somewhere around $1,250 a person. Imagine what the average family could do with that money, which would be about $5,000 if you have a family of four. That's your winter tires plus groceries for a few months, and it's paid for. Taking on this debt is burying Canadian families. That's simple math, Josh, and I will suggest that just dividing the number by person isn't what they're going to pay in tax on it. But my point is that we want government spending on programs that benefit Canadians. I think that I'm safe in saying that. I think that's what Canadians expect from their government. And when we're taking $55 million right off the top, or $1 billion right off the top, that could be better spent on things that we expect the government to spend money on, right? Now, I get it. I don't think there's a government, and maybe I'm wrong, but I can't think of a government off the top of my head that isn't in deficit. And I think one of the comments I heard during the budget discussion yesterday was that many in the G7 would be very jealous of the Canadian bank, the Canadian coffers at this point. Well, holy smokes, people! Like it feels like we don't try even anymore to balance a budget. And as I said before, the bottom line is Canadians tend to not push back on deficit spending as long as their taxes don't go up. Well, I think there's probably some in the public service that are going to lose their job that would think otherwise. To the phones. Let's welcome Arthur to the show. Arthur, how are you?
Not too bad. How are you?
Good. What's on your mind, sir?
I would think that, when somebody becomes a traitor to their party and crosses the floor to go to another party, I think what should happen there is there should be another by-election. Because number one is the people in my area here who have voted for d'Entremont voted for the Conservatives Party, not for the Liberals. And so why am I going to support d'Entremont anymore if he ever runs in an election anymore? I'm not going to vote for him because he actually betrayed us. if we in our area voted for the Conservative Party, and I think there should be a by-election right now for that sometime in the future in order to see, do the constituents now want a Liberal or a Conservative? What do you think of that?
That's exactly what I said at the top of the show and throughout the open hour. Is I think that if you're going to make the decision to leave a party that people elected you to represent them in Ottawa and to go to the other team, you should have to face the electorate. You should have to let them make that decision.
Definitely. I think this man is now really he may as well quit politics, because as far as I'm concerned, the people in this area here are not going to vote for him ever again now because of what he has done. And the other thing is I'd like to mention quickly is that as far as the budget goes, it's not putting any money in my pocket. What it's going to do is take more money from me as taxes. And that's all I have to say today. And
Appreciate
have a good
it.
day.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Got an email here very quickly from Margaret, who is very correct in saying that Brendan Maguire wasn't the only one to cross the floor. We often forget about Fred Tilley, who crossed the floor from the Liberals to join the Conservatives as well. And now Mr. Tilley is in cabinet. So there you have it. Rick, how are you?
Oh, pretty good. Look, crossing the floor is not new. It's old as the hills.
Mm-hmm.
So, there are...
Doesn't make it right, though, does it?
There are consequences for people who cross the floor. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad.
Right.
But here's what I have a problem, just philosophically, with either the Liberals or Conservatives being in power for too long. Normally, with the switcheroo, when one gets booted out, as they say, you don't get elected, you get thrown out.
Yep.
We have a balance of fiscal responsibility versus, more or less runaway spending.
A balance of philosophies. I agree with you. Yep.
Yeah. So if we stick with the Liberals for too long, the deficits and the overall debt, which is now well over $1 trillion, are just going to keep growing because the populace doesn't seem to catch on to what is actually happening with that. They don't, even though you talk about it and other callers talk about the debt and how the interest payments are, egregious. They take money away from everybody in a sense. It's still not important enough for the people who seem to think that the other maybe social issues might be more important. So I see it in a very negative light that if the Liberals continue in this minority situation after having been in power for 10 years, I thought it was great when the Conservatives were booted out after 9 years.
Right.
And, so anyway, that's all I got on that.
Appreciate it, Rick.
All right.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Last word today goes to Dave. Dave, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
What's on your mind?
Well, what's on my mind is people have to realize that you can't vote your way out of any of this. And if you think for 1 minute that any of these people that are voted in are working for you, open your eyes up. They're not working for you. They're working for the economy or big business. They're not working for you and I. I don't vote because there's nothing to vote for. You've got Carney in one spot, Pierre Poilievre controlled opposition in the other spot, and when it changes, the other guy becomes the controlled opposition. All they do is keep taking our money, but they never solve anything. I'm 62. All of my life, I've always heard politicians talk about the economy, fixing the economy, but they never do it. And they keep borrowing money from the central bank because that's the only way they can create any money anymore, is through your name, they create money. Now, really, what's going on? People got to wake up.
Deficit spending
Stop
certainly has
fighting.
become the normal, right? Absolutely the normal.
Well, all it is a big show. And nobody ever accomplishes a damn thing in there. Nothing. They ship our money out of the country, and they don't put anything back here. I really don't understand why people don't realize this, is what I don't get. I mean, crap, our names are legal fictions. They're not even real.
Dave, appreciate the call.
Literally.
I'm up against the break. I appreciate it, man. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Remember those numbers. Put them in your phone. Mark them down on a piece of paper because we're going to do this again tomorrow and open up the telephone lines at 11 o'clock. So I look forward to having that conversation. Thanks to all of our guests who joined us on the program today, particularly Steve Murphy, who joined us for a little extra or a little longer than he had expected to, but it's always good to hear his perspective on things. Thank you very much to Vanessa Vananez on the phones and getting things organized, keeping me in line. Not an easy task. I tell you that every day because it's the truth. Have a fantastic day, everybody. Make sure that you get out there and enjoy what Nova Scotia has to offer. It is the best place on the planet to live. Until then, everybody, be well and be kind to one another.